My name is Sarah. I am the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services and Disability Services. And today, myself and my colleague, Dr. Charles Starkman, will be presenting on some secrets for first year success. So before we get into the little bit more, let us tell you a little bit about our background. There we go. So as I mentioned, I am the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services and Disability Services here at UM-Dearborn. I'm also an alumni of UM-Dearborn. I also then went to Illinois State and Indiana State for my graduate school. So I've been working in higher ed and counseling and psychological service offices for over a decade. Time really flies. So hopefully over that time, I've been able to pick up on some good tips that I'm able to share with all of you today of how to have a good successful first year.
And I'm Charlie. Charles formally, Charlie casually. I am a staff psychologist and the outreach coordinator here at CAPS at U of M-Dearborn. I did my undergrad at U of M Ann Arbor, so it's fun to have an M card again after all these years of not having one and being part of the U of M family. And I did my doctorate degree at Adler University, so I have my PsyD in clinical psychology. And I have received specialized training in assessing and treating eating disorders and complex trauma. So this is kind of my own specialty area, and with Sarah together we supervise our trainees that work with us at CAPS, and clinical supervision is something that I'm also very passionate about as well. And I've enjoyed working in counseling centers in the past, and I'm really excited to talk more today about the first year of college and how to make it successful for all of you who are watching.
Great, thank you for that introduction. So before we kind of jump into some of those tips and tricks that myself and Charlie have mentioned, we didn't feel it'd be appropriate to really do this presentation at the current time without kind of having a preface of recognizing that transitioning to college right now, whether you're transitioning from a community college and transferring into U of M-Dearborn, or transitioning from high school to college, either one of those situations is doing so during a global pandemic is going to look and feel very different. So although a lot of these, again, tips and tricks will work no matter what, we do want to kind of recognize that piece of it, and that they might require some modifications to really be able to get the full benefit of what can be helpful. We recognize that there's a lot of stress, a lot of unknowns, a lot of learning different technology. Maybe this first year at U of M-Dearborn is not going to look like what you thought about in your head. I think that's pretty safe probably to say that's true. But it could still be a fantastic, great year and great experience for you. And we are definitely going to be there to be able to support you through that. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into some tips and tricks.
All right. So I can start off talking about this part. So when we think about mental health and well-being, we often what first comes up is stress, right? And we often think of stress as something psychological, which it certainly is, but stress also plays a really big role in terms of how we are functioning physically as well. We kind of think of that mind-body connection, right? And it's important for us to be able to understand that relationship between stressors and how we respond both physically and psychologically. So we're gonna get a little bit deeper into stress and what that looks like, kind of how to notice the signs.
Absolutely. And you might be asking, why are we talking about, stress when we're talking about academic success? Well, as we mentioned, even in the best of times, making the transition from high school to college or from one university to another can be very stressful. So it's really important at the very baseline to be able to recognize that we're experiencing stress. And that means we need to know what it is. So again, stress can be a normal response. I think we often talk about stress management like we should be stress-free and not feel anything. That's not so. Stress is really our body's way of trying to tell us that there's something different. There's some type of maybe physical threat or psychological threat, something that is making our body kind of take a step back. We want that defense. We want that recognition or that really sign that something is amok right now or might be different, to be able to help us be able to prepare our resources to be able to change whatever it is that is causing that stress. So again, I'm not focusing so much on managing your stress or getting rid of stress, but more about managing that stress, taking that information that your body and mind is giving you and using it to be able to tackle the situation ahead. Now, there is a difference between your kind of natural stress levels and then the overwhelming stress that a lot of individuals kind of speak out. And we do want to kind of make that difference. A lot of times we also don't realize how much stress we're under. You know, we mentioned global pandemic. I think we can all say that that is stressful for all of us for different reasons, right? But there also is other things in life that are going on right now as well. So really doing a good inventory of what our stress looks like can help us be able to set ourselves on a path of success for our first year. So kind of with that said, I'm going to kind of skip over this because we already kind of went through this piece, is that I think it'd be really great to be able to look at your stress levels. So right here, you know, if I could be able to get my computer to work right with this, which I tried beforehand and it doesn't, is an actual stress survey. So what is going to happen if you are watching this after the fact, and you're saying, well, I want to know what my stress level is. You can actually go right under the link that you found this of, and there'll be a direct link to the stress survey. The stress survey will give you multiple items that you can be able to look at, and there are points assigned to those items. You add up the points, and then there actually is a score sheet at the very end that will tell you how high your stress is and what might be some like different things that you might be more likely to experience because of the level of your stress. One thing I do want to point out, since you'll be doing this on your own and not in the classroom environment or with us, you know, in front of us, is that you'll notice some things on that list that we might think of as positive, or at least we hope to think of positive. One example of that I can think about is starting a new relationship. Well, hopefully if we're starting a new relationship, that's a positive, happy experience, right? You might be asking yourself, why is that on a stress scale? Because any change can be stressful. Humans are creatures of habit. We enjoy things staying the same. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess how you kind of see it, the only thing that stays the same is the fact that things are always changing. Even those positive changes can kind of prevent or bring about stress. Again, stress doesn't have to be a negative experience. It just is a physiological change within our body, kind of letting us know that things are changing around us.
And there are a lot of reasons why students don't reach out. And we'll go through a series of these, and we'll start with difficulty identifying that there is a problem. And a lot of times, you know, a student could have been experiencing a problem long before it got to the point where it was really starting to either cause them a significant amount of stress or impacting their functioning. So maybe they've noticed, for example, that they've persistently felt sad very frequently for a long time, but they've just kind of felt like this is normal. This is just sort of how I am. I'm just always sad. And they've been able to kind of navigate through life just with that persistent sadness, not recognizing that it really is a problem, and therefore not necessarily feeling as though they are deserving of help. Again, stigma is something that comes up often, especially knowing the cultural piece behind mental health, mental illness, and just help seeking in general. And fortunately, on campus, we have a very supportive environment in terms of seeking out services and wanting students to know that we are here for them. But oftentimes, we have really deep-seated messages that we receive that can kind of compete with the support and encouragement that we might be getting from campus. And sometimes it can be hard to fight both. Not knowing what resources are available is common on campuses. Not knowing, maybe, for example, where CAPS is located, or not knowing how to access not knowing how to access the website, or not knowing, if there's anything else that you might need accommodations for, and feeling kind of lost because universities are so vast. There's so many different departments, so many different offices, so many different places to go that it can start to feel really confusing. Schedules are busy. College students are busy, and you're often working on top of going to school, perhaps raising a family, helping parents, caring for others. There's so many demands on a student's time that therapy and mental health might not necessarily be a priority. Past experiences with help seeking and self-reliance can also play a really important part. And this one's important too, because a person might have actually recognized before, hey, this is a problem. And they reached out and they were really hoping to get the validation and support that they needed. And they weren't met with that kind of openness and support. And as a result, those negative experiences have perhaps led a student to think, well, these have been my negative experiences in the past. Why would seeking out a therapist on campus be any different? Right? Which then kind of leads into those feelings of hopelessness. Maybe my problems are beyond, are beyond repair. Maybe, there's nothing anyone can do to actually help me. And, then you become more skeptical of whether or not therapy is beneficial. And as a result, they all sort of link together, I think, really nicely. But this goes back to, again, messages that we might have received about mental health care, even just about doctors in general. And, is talking to someone that's not a family member or a friend really going to provide the same benefit? So, is it really worth wasting the time if you don't think it's going to work? Right? And we also know that statistically, males are less likely to seek help than females. Again, kind of with males having the tendency to hold things inside, wanting to be independent in terms of trying to, solve problems themselves, and not realizing that there is, that they, just as much as anyone else, deserve a space to be able to process the struggles that they're facing, the stressors that they're facing. So this is a detailed but very thorough and important list of reasons why students don't reach out. And we hope that through today's presentation, we'll be able to help first-year students feel comfortable reaching out to CAPS or just any sort of support on campus if they need us when you get here.
Absolutely. So we kind of talked about some reasons why students might not reach out to be able to get support during that stressful first year, or just in general. There's also some ineffective coping strategies that we might be engaging in instead of looking at some healthy ways of managing some of that stress caused by transition. So some common ones that we might see, or you might have heard or experienced yourself, is individuals that are under high amounts of stress or just really having a hard time transitioning or finding their spot, might be drinking too much alcohol, might start experimenting with drugs, start going to lots of parties, again trying to find some type of way to just get a break away from the different emotions that they're feeling. Unfortunately, with both of those examples, oftentimes that just causes more problems and more stress and more issues. The same can be said about things like emotional eating or restricting food. So I know Charlie could probably talk better about this than I could, but just that general feeling of wanting some control over something can make individuals oftentimes engage in restricting food. Or just wanting to have those natural rush of endorphins that come with eating certain foods could lead to that emotional overeating that we can sometimes see as well. Hooking up. Now, I always like to clarify this as a sex positive therapist. When we're talking about hooking up, we're talking about hooking up for not reasons that you want to engage in sex, but you're just trying to really distance yourself from how you're feeling and disconnect, and using as a stress management instead of something that you want to be engaging in. There's nothing wrong with having a healthy sex life or engaging in hookup culture, as long as it's doing it for the reasons that you will feel comfortable and confident with, and not as an ineffective coping strategy for stress. Same thing with sleeping too much. I think we often hear about, oh, I'm not sleeping at all, or I'm having hard time sleeping. But what we don't hear a lot about is that I'm not getting out of bed. I'm just trying to escape from everything around me and the different stressors by staying in bed. Now, again, we mentioned that some of these things might be more prevalent than others during the global pandemic that we're experiencing. And this is one that I've heard a lot from students, even current students who have experience in the college environment, is now taking most of their classes remotely online, where there might not be a set time where they have to attend the class. They find themselves having a really disruptive sleep schedule. So I think this is a really important one to be able to pay attention to figure out how you yourself, especially this coming semester, are going to manage your own schedule, including sleeping. If you want some tips on sleep hygiene, we did a workshop on that just within the last couple of weeks that you can be able to find on our helpful resource page as well. Also related to, again, that wanting consent of control or wanting to kind of turn off emotions. Sometimes individuals engage in cutting or self-harm behavior. Again, different than the suicidal thoughts and attempts, although suicidal thoughts and attempts can also be a way that people are reacting to the different stressors that they're around. Also withdrawing or isolating from friends. And then this can look also very different right now, where we're asking people to do that social distancing, that they might already be feeling isolated. They might already be feeling disconnected. They might already be feeling withdrawn. And those are not going to be effective coping strategies for the different stressors. And it's going to take some creative ways to be able to think about some ways to continue to stay connected. Again, not to plug workshops. We've had some different workshops on that offer some hints and tricks on being able to stay connected with your friends and your social environment, how to be able to even engage in romantic dating while we're doing social distancing to keep everyone safe. And of course, another ineffective strategy, I think, is just that avoidance or procrastinating. I'm not a big fan of the word procrastinating. I like to think of it more as just avoidance. So we know we need to do something, but we're just do everything we possibly can but that. So I know I have this research project to do, but ooh, maybe I should clean out my closet. Oh, over there, I should walk my dog. They look like they need to walk right now. So it's really actively just engaging in different activities. So you're still being productive, but in a very different way because you're trying to avoid whatever stressful project that you're looking at. So kind of being aware of some of these red flags can be able to help you in making sure you're setting yourself up for your own successful plan of transitioning.
Okay. So we've got the four A's approaches to managing stress. So we start with avoid. So what this means, learning to reduce unnecessary stressors. I like to kind of think of it as almost like environmental, like in engineering, so to speak. So being able to kind of craft, which I guess sort of links to adapt as well, but really thinking about how can we create an environment that works best for us, that minimizes the amount of unhealthy stress we experience in order to allow us to be as functional and productive as possible. Alter, so looking at strategies to being assertive, so being able to state your wants and needs clearly if you feel that they aren't being met in a relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship, in a friendship, with family, with coworkers, professors, whoever it might be. Just being able to state clearly what you want and need from others. And yes, that can be stressful in and of itself. Assertiveness is not easy, of course, but it is extremely effective. And it's just like any other behavioral skill. As you practice, you start to become more and more comfortable with doing it. Compromise. This is often really challenging. And I like to use the example, especially when thinking about first-year students, of roommates. And let's say you might be living in the union, and you're sharing a suite with someone, and you have to be able to learn how to compromise on the time that you spend in the shower. Now you're sharing a space with other people. You might not have unlimited time in the bathroom in the way that you'd want because you're sharing it with 2 or 3 other people. So being able to find a middle ground is so important and can really help reduce a lot of that stress that can build up, especially in situations when we live with other people, for example. And similar, in a similar setting, handling problems as they arise. So we know that suppressing and ignoring and avoiding tends to only lead things to, to bottle up even more. And as a result, our stress increases. It's sort of like a paradox, right? And the easier it is for us to talk to the people around us or just navigating the situations that are causing us stress, we're going to be better able to handle those problems and their stressors as they come up. And also asking ourselves, is this situation really worth getting stressed over? Is the amount of pain and suffering that I'm experiencing based over this particular situation, does it match facts, the facts of the situation don't always match the feelings that we're having. So we know we've, again, fun plug, but we're going to be doing a workshop next week on DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and we'll talk about like feelings aren't being facts, feelings aren't facts. And it's important to remember that sometimes we might think that a situation is so important and that our level of stress is completely appropriate and this makes so much sense. But when we actually take a step back and kind of think about it, the feelings might not necessarily be in proportion to the facts of the situation. So really asking ourselves is, do the two match? And another big part of stress, managing stress, is acceptance and recognizing that stress is a natural part of life. And just like Sarah has said, stress in small amounts as well can be positive, and sometimes it can serve as a way to to motivate us or to recognize that there's something that we're working towards. Just like in the same way that human beings like consistency and routine, we also like having a sense that we're working towards a goal. And so when we have something that's kind of pushing us forward and it might be building up our stress because we're moving in a direction, it can also be really beneficial for us to help us accept that there is going to be stress. And especially as first year students, there are going to be stressors, different types of stressors, ones that you might never have experienced before. So being able to practice these 4 A's will be really beneficial as you navigate through your first year.
Absolutely. Now let me switch. Sorry about that. Still learning the technology here. So what are some, specific things that you might be able to do to be able to help when you're in those different stressful situations? I really like to think about, we have to be able to meet our basic needs if we're going to be able to cope with any type of situation that comes with us or comes towards us. So, when you're looking at your schedule for the fall semester and you look at all the different classes that you're going to be in, and you realize, ooh, second week of October, I'm going to have 4 different exams. Ooh, they're all midterm exams at that. We can be able to face those different stressors that come at it, even those huge stressors, if we're doing some of the basic care needs. Because if we're not doing the things listed on this slide at a normal, consistent basis, it's going to be even more difficult of a situation to be able to meet our goals and be successful in being able to face those big challenges like 4 midterms in a week. So making sure that you're giving yourself some time to be able to relax, ideally every day. Now, I often get this, and I truly relate to this as well, Sarah, I don't have time. As you mentioned, I'm a busy college student. I don't have time to go to yoga for an hour. That's just going to be more stressful than not. And I feel that, and I get that. I remember back when I was in graduate school, we had a person from our counseling center come and give us a presentation about the importance of engaging in self-care and relaxation. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, yeah, well, I work 3 jobs and I'm a TA and I'm doing research and I'm in grad school. Relaxation time, that's just not possible. And what I really learned though from that experience is that we do need it. So how do I be able to get it with my limited time? So one of the favorite things that I think that we have here at CAPS as a resource is we have a plethora of different 5 to 15-minute relaxation exercises that you can be able to fit into your day. You don't need a yoga mat and an hour worth of time to be able to engage in good self-care and relaxation. You need maybe, 2 5-minute breaks and engaging in some of those 5-minute relaxation exercises? I think we all can come up with 2 5-minute breaks during our busy day to be able to engage in self-care. Because if we engage in that self-care, we're also going to be more productive with the things we are engaging in our busy schedule. So again, if you're interested in those, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to be able to send you some of the different 5 to 10-minute exercises that we have. You can just email us right now at UM-Dearborn CAP to be able to reach us at umich.edu. We are working currently at the time of this presentation at getting our phones back up and working from us to be able to answer remotely. But depending on when you're watching this, we'll always be answering our emails. So feel free to email us for some of those tips. Also exercising regularly, going back to that you're busy. And I also relate to this of that I'm not a gym person. If you're a person who really enjoyed that gym environment, well, you know, and it's open now, you're able to engage in that, great. But those that aren't, or maybe right now when gyms are not open because of the coronavirus, it's finding out some different ways to creatively engage in exercising. So whether that means you're taking the stairs, whether that means you're going bike riding, whether it means when you go to different places, you park farther away from the door. Doing different things just to be able to get more physical exercise and physical movement into your daily routine can be very helpful. You know, one of the things that I make sure to be able to do, it as an exercise, but it's still physical movement, is that I always schedule a 10-minute break at the end of my different sessions that I engage in, so I can get up and walk around and move my body. Again, movement and exercise is just really important to be able to do and integrate into your daily life. Also, healthy diet. It is much easier to grab a pizza and drink some Pepsi or Coke. But again, that instant rush of, you know, endorphins and sugar that you get is really going to crash down later on. So I'm not saying rule out the Pepsi and Coke or rule out the pizza. There's definitely a place for all of those things. But try to make sure that you're getting a variety of food. I think sometimes we get stuck on getting a variety of food every day. I try to look at it every week. So in your week, are you getting a variety of different vegetables? Maybe one day you're eating a lot of veggies. Maybe the next day you're eating a lot of grains. That's fine. Look at yourself and your diet as a week long and try to see if you can be able to have balance. Also back to that busyness, it's really easy to skip meals, especially when we're a busy college student trying to engage in classes while also being able to manage work and home and responsibilities that we might have within our family. So that might mean planning a little bit ahead to making sure that if you are going out and not going to be able to be near a kitchen and only options being fast food, to avoid that fast food, pack yourself a lunch. Maybe you don't have access to refrigerators. You say, how do I be able to pack myself a lunch without refrigeration? Grabbing different granola bars, different things that can give you high protein and keep your energy and moving. And then of course, sleep. I think a lot of people hear about the stereotypical college experience of late night cram sessions, all night studying, you know, before midterms. Those stereotypes are horrible for our actual success in college. Because the reality is, if you spend all night the night before a midterm studying, your brain is going to be so exhausted that you wasted a lot of that time studying because your brain's not really going to be able to remember that at the time of the midterm. Research shows over and over again that if you study smarter, not harder, you're going to be more successful. Ways to study smarter, not harder, is making sure that you're taking time to study and then getting sleep that you need. So in this instance, it's one of those things that studying less and getting more sleep actually could be able to give more positive results as you're moving forward. Okay.
So we've seen some of the ineffective coping strategies, and we've talked about some of the things that you can do to alter those really important areas of your functioning, your diet, sleep, everything else. We also want to be able to talk about the positive coping strategies as well. And you might think, okay, well, I know a lot of these things, I do a lot of these things already, which is great. Keep doing them. So maybe watching a funny movie, something that you can watch that doesn't necessarily require a ton of thinking, and that you just get to be lost in the humor. Humor is a wonderful defense, being able to connect with the humor and life, the absurd. These are all really important things for us to kind of take a step back and recognize that even though you're dealing with a lot of very important, serious things as a first year student, that you can also take that time to kind of step back and just see the humor in things, especially, you know, if you have a movie that you really enjoy that always makes you laugh, that can be a go-to. You know, playing on the computer, and I think this one can be really good, obviously within reason, making sure that you're not, you know, on the computer for hours and hours and staring at the screen until it makes it hard to sleep. But thinking about all the different things that we use the computer for, and that kind of links to talking to a friend, right? This using the computer for social media purposes, for communication, especially right now, using Zoom or other means of communicating while we're in this era of physical and social distancing. This is how we are able to talk to friends, maybe to see our family. But of course, if you can do it in a safe way, being able to see people in person is so important. And we obviously encourage you to do as much as possible to see the people that you care most about in person. That support is such a buffer for positive mental health, academic success, in so many different ways it can enhance your experience as a college student. Animals are amazing ways to cope. Sarah has several animals. A lot of that, pretty much, I think almost everyone on staff at CAPS has a pet except me, although I am in the process of getting a dog, hopefully. But that's why so many of these animals are, therapy animals, that they have therapeutic benefits of being able to just interact with an animal, being able to just really lose yourself in the sensory aspect of an animal, and also something that's not going to talk back, that you can just be with and just be present in that moment. Taking a nap. I am a huge proponent of taking naps. I think a 20 to 30 minute cat nap. Now, again, disclaimer, we don't want the naps to be extremely long, because then that makes it really hard to fall asleep in the evenings. But again, taking a 20 to 30 minute cat nap, or power nap as they call it, can actually have really beneficial effects in terms of memory, kind of reboosting your energy, and just sort of giving you like that little boost. And it is important to be able to listen to your body. If you are feeling tired and you really do feel like, I do need to take a rest, take that rest. Just make sure that you are timing it appropriately so that your sleep is not completely disrupted. That's something really important. Prioritizing. This is extremely important, because as you transition into your first year of college, you're going to be faced with all sorts of competing interests for your time. So being able to prioritize, you're going to be faced with academics, families, relationships, friendships, extracurriculars, so many different things. And it's really going to be up to you to prioritize, and think about what is most important to me, what is most demanding of my time, and what is really most crucial for me to focus on right now. Once you have your priorities in place, everything else kind of starts to fall together. It just sort of comes together, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of navigate all of the different areas of college life. The arts are wonderful ways of being able to cope with stress, whether that's drawing, writing, photography, creation, singing, whatever it looks like. Anything that can help you create, help you connect to that creative side, to really connect, is a really wonderful way to be able to cope. Asking for help. This, and again, as we like to be able to do as much as we can by ourselves, sometimes asking for help or delegating tasks to others can be really challenging for us, especially if we have a stubborn or prideful streak, which I know at times I do. So this one can be challenging, but you will find that when you are able to ask for help, usually people are more than willing to help you, and it can be a huge weight off your shoulders. And, you know, it is just beneficial to know that other people are there to help you, because we can't do it all. We have to take some of the load off, and being able to delegate tasks or ask for help for others is extremely important. And practicing gratitude and really taking in your environment, the natural, the natural world. What is beautiful to you? Do you like being able to be in nature, taking walks, taking walks outside? I know that for me, I'm a huge proponent of spending time by water. Water is extremely relaxing. We live in Michigan, so we are near a lot of lakes and rivers and bodies of water kind of all over the place. So I think that can also be a really great way to connect with the beautiful environment that we live in Michigan, and really just being grateful for what we have. You were able to accomplish so much just by getting to college, and you should be so proud of yourself and grateful for this amazing opportunity, and you've earned it. So just remembering that and being affirming of all that you've been able to accomplish and being grateful for these opportunities can also be a really helpful way to cope with stress. So these are just a detailed list of some other coping, some more positive strategies. I don't know if there are more, Sarah.
Yeah, so there's a couple more, and the reason that we're like, why is this not on the same page, is this presentation has been one that has been evolving over a couple of years actually. And when we have done this presentation historically in the past, we'll ask people what are some other things that they do to be able to engage in some positive coping strategies. And we've just continued to add things that we were like, oh, that's a really good thing. We want to be able to make sure it's mentioned. So these are just some things that we've been able to add over the years. And we didn't want the font to be too small. So one is just relaxing. I often joke that when I was finishing up grad school, the thing I wanted to do the most was just sit and stare at walls, watch paint dry. But I think that that's an important thing if we really think about what was the message behind that statement, is that sometimes we just need to disconnect. It can be extremely overwhelming. We have, information at our fingertips. We have news breaking every single minute during the best of times, and sometimes not during the best of times. At the same time, we're trying to cope with all the different things that we're dealing with in our daily life. So I think it related to kind of that gratitude and finding beauty is also that relaxing and disconnecting piece. That sometimes we just need to turn off social media. We need to turn off the news for a little while and just really get back to connecting with ourselves and our environment. A great way to be able to do that, obviously, kind of connected, can be listening to music, can be finding something that really kind of tunes into you. You'll notice that I don't have listening to, certain type of music, because in my experience, when I ask a person, listen to some relaxing music, the different genres that have come up have been very different. So find what music is relaxing to you, whether that means that you're screaming out punk lyrics or you're listening to Mozart. Whatever and everything in between can be really great ways just to be able to get out the different emotions and things that we're really experiencing. Also, a positive coping strategy can be time management. So yes, if you're a person who does well with a planner and really structuring out your time, great, that's your time management strategy. If you're not, great, what is your time management strategy? If you remember, I said I'm not a big fan of the word procrastinate, because I think in some ways, some people, that's just the best way that they work. Sometimes waiting to the last minute gives people the pressure they need to be able to do their best work. And we label that as procrastination as something negative. No, maybe that's just their time management strategy. So whatever is working for you. Now again, if waiting to the last minute is not working for you, then that's not the time management strategy you want to be utilizing, but kind of figuring out what's going to be able to help you create the balance that you need to be able to be motivated and the least stressful as possible. And I loved this. I will still remember the individual who said, why cry? And people were like, crying, is that a positive coping strategy? Absolutely. We cry when we're happy. We cry when something's funny. We cry when things are sad. We cry when we're frustrated. We cry because it's an emotional release. Any type of emotional release that is not hurting anybody, including ourselves, can definitely be a positive coping strategy. just allowing yourself to be able to express whatever emotion it is by going through the physical act of crying can be a very healthy, positive coping experience.
Yeah. And so you're going to, coming to college will result in, as we've seen so far, there are definitely going to be stressors when you come to college, but we're going to hone in on some of the specific stressors that you might face when coming to college. So the academic challenges. Students will typically notice pretty quickly, especially first-year students, that the academic demands of college are not the same as in high school. And what also makes it challenging is not even necessarily the amount of work, but sometimes even the lack of work. A class might, you might not get points for participation anymore. Your grade might be determined by a midterm, a paper, and a final. And so there's a lot more riding on fewer things, and a lot more of the academic demands fall on you. And this really goes back and actually links perfectly to the time management challenges. To be able to, to address a course where you only have those 3 things and they're spaced out, and you have to be able to, navigate how you approach studying and writing, you have to be able to find that time management strategy that really works for you. And knowing that there are going to be, again, a lot of different demands on your time. And how are you able to prioritize your time and manage your time effectively to be able to meet the moment, to be able to handle the academic challenges of college. And to kind of add actually to the academic challenges, something that is that's also different is that, aside from office hours, it might not be as easy to have as much individual time with a professor. So being able to communicate and reach out if you feel like you need additional support is going to be a really helpful skill, but it can also be a challenge, especially if you went to maybe a smaller high school and the classes were much smaller and you had a lot more access to your teachers. This is going to feel a lot different. And again, that onus kind of falls on the student to adjust, and that adjustment is really hard. Social challenges. This is another really big one. You're completely changing your social environment. And in some cases, UM-Dearborn is unique because we are a mostly commuter school, and so a lot of our students do reside at home. And so in that sense, you might still, be able to see a lot of your really good friends from, high school and still maintain those connections, which is great. But, you're also going to be spending time with new people. In the era of COVID, it might not necessarily be on campus, but you might be forging those relationships through perhaps Zoom meetings, or if you're joining extracurriculars and you have, again, meetings on Zoom is the only thing that comes to mind. So we'll just Zoom. When you see people on Zoom, you're forging new connections, and it's finding that balance of how do I forge these new social connections while also maintaining the relationships that are really important to me. And at the same time, you also want to look at how can I use, this experience that I have, this opportunity to meet new people and kind of break out of my comfort zone a little bit, which then sort of leads to some of the inherent challenges that come with greater independence and responsibility. Again, you might still be living at home, but there's a lot of changes in terms of what you become responsible for once you start college. And you're responsible for maintaining your grades. You're responsible for having to get up and log on to class. You're responsible for navigating your assignments, and having to really take charge of those things can be really, really difficult. And, physical health challenges can become a major source of stress as well. we've kind of looked at, the different ways that stress can affect our physical health. But you might also be coming into college having experienced perhaps a long time chronic illness or an autoimmune illness, or it's something that causes you perhaps a lot of physical pain. And how do you navigate, again, these academic challenges, the social challenges, while also trying to balance a chronic illness or significant physical pain or anything else that might come up? And how do you balance, kind of a perfect segue? I love this list because they all segue perfectly into each other. Is, how are we able to really find the balance between, academics here, making sure that we're maintaining social connections here, caring for our physical health and well-being? All of these things kind of have to come together for the entire machine to work, and sometimes that can be really hard. And as a result, it can often feel like things feel out of balance, but that doesn't mean that they are permanently out of balance. By being able to take stock of what is working and what isn't working, it helps to kind of get you back towards the center and really think about, okay, how can I utilize my own innate strengths and the resources and supports around me to find, to get back to a balanced place where I can really handle the different stressors that are coming at me in my first year. Financial challenges. So I think, yeah, I did. I just wrote the Wellness Wednesday on financial wellness. So financial wellness is something that is really important. We might not necessarily always link it to the other aspects of wellness, but it is very important. And the financial struggle is real right now with, with thinking about tuition increase. You have loan payments, rent, car payments, phone payments. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. And it's very difficult to know how to best manage your finances. But one important, a great way to start is just by budgeting. And there's so many helpful apps now. There's one called Mobills, I think, that can help you budget for your monthly, for any sort of monthly bills that you pay. And you can work out, what are your expenses? Where can you put aside money for leisure, pleasure, things that you want to, things that aren't mandatory expenses, et cetera, et cetera. But this is an extremely challenging area, because for so long your folks might have been able to help you out with a lot of financial things. Now this sort of falls more onto you as you're moving into that emerging adult role. And how can I handle my money wisely? And also, again, we are living in the era of COVID-19. How do we navigate all of the shifting technologies that are present in our world right now? And how do we attend college online? When we first applied, we were expecting to come to campus. How do we get used to learning via technology? And how can we still forge connections, not even just to people, but just feeling connected to the university? And that might mean, taking some risks and trying to, ask, look into different, again, like the social aspect, right? Kind of reaching out more, having to kind of take that extra step that might not necessarily have to be taken if we weren't in this current situation. But there are going to be a variety of stressors that do present when you're coming to college, but we've also shared a lot of really excellent ways to cope with them.
Absolutely. So some tips for just from successful transitions, and I think we've covered a lot of these, so I'm just going to hit some key ones here. We've already kind of mentioned the importance of time management, but also knowing about what your campus resources are and how to be able to use them. Again, the fact that we're in the COVID-19 era, and the majority of the different offices are continuing to work remotely, I believe into the fall, it will be figuring out not only where the location of those are, but not as important. It'll be more, how do I get in contact with them? So for instance, CAPS and Disability Services continues to be able to provide services remotely. So you wouldn't be going into our actual physical space to be able to make an appointment. You would be emailing us or hopefully calling us in a couple of weeks to be able to make those appointments. Or with Disability Services, going on their website and you'd find out that you use Success to be able to schedule your appointment directly onto our disability coordinator schedule. Each and every campus resource is going to have different ways of being able to connect during this time. But it'll also be good to know, after this is done and we're able to go back on campus, where are those different services on campus and in this changing different environment. As we mentioned, the importance again of getting involved, super important to do, and you definitely can do that remotely. Student organizations are still involved, student life is still doing different events. You can already be getting involved, which is a little bit different than maybe most summer semesters before you start college, is that there's lots of opportunities to already start getting connected with the university and getting involved with different student orgs, because all of us that are working under student affairs have really been able to move to this more remote platform. Communicate and foster relationships. I really want to second what Charlie mentioned about that. In high school, teachers reach out. In college, that onus is on you to be able to reach out to your TAs or your professors. And it's super important to be able to forge those relationships with your professors and your TAs, not only for academic success, but just also that connectivity to the university, and depending on what your future career goals are, and if you're looking at grad school or med school or law school, the importance of being able to make those connections to be able to help with references later on. But again, I think it's just the take home. I think we've gone through most of these. The only other thing that I would really want to be able to push forward as really recognizing is knowing your limits too. I think oftentimes we think, well, I was a straight A student in high school. I could take 6 classes. I could take 18 credit hours my first semester. Chem, a foreign language, biology, and algebra, not a problem. College is different. Research again shows over and over again, your lowest GPA is usually your first year of college. And that is for people who, whether they're straight A's or straight C's before coming in. And the reason that is college is different, and we need some time to be able to transition to the different type of academic rigor and the different type of expectations in classrooms and make those adjustments to be able to be successful. So I usually tell people to take less classes their first year as they learn about what those different academic rigor looks like, so they can really be able to figure out what their limits are so that they can know them and use them moving forward. I'll cover this one, I know, because you've had to cover some big slides, Charlie, so I can cover this one for you. We wanted to add some just related to coronavirus, is that if you can beforehand, please become familiar with the new technology. Charlie mentioned Zoom, becoming familiar with Blue Jeans, becoming familiar with Canvas, really trying to find out all the different technologies. Victor's Link is a great way to be able to connect with different student organizations and different events that are happening on our remote campus. So definitely checking out what the different technologies are so that you can really hit the ground running and feel that connectivity. Because we are working primarily remotely during the fall semester, checking your emails frequently. I know it can be overwhelming at times because the main and really only way to really be able to communicate is through emails right now, at least to the masses. But it's super important to be able to check that, because all the information that you're going to need really to be able to set yourself up for success is going to be communicated via email. Organize a space to do remote coursework. I know, at least for myself, when I was hired as a director, I wasn't thinking about that I ever was going to be working from home. And so when we kind of pivoted to providing services remotely, I had to figure out, how do I find a space within my home environment that isn't set up to do work at home, So taking this last month or so before classes start and finding a space within your home environment to be able to do work. It may not be that you have a separate office to be able to do classroom work in, and that's fine. It's maybe finding just that little cubby in the corner of a room that you can be able to close the door to really be able to focus on what you need to be able to do to get those classes done. I cannot reiterate enough the importance of attending remote orientation. That is going to give you all the information about where those different resources are on campus, what resources are available, how do you be able to contact them. And the great thing about remote orientation right now too is that you can go back and be able to look at some of the information in a way that you wouldn't have been able to do if you were attending in person, because some of that is part of actually the campus courses. So definitely check out the information so you can find out what different resources are available for you and how to be able to connect with them. I also know that this is a little generational. I know previous to going remote, not a lot of students would just check out the website. Check out the website. That is the way that most offices can be able to update their information. You know the most up-to-date way to be able to contact them and be able to get those resources. So doing a little exploring on UM-Dearborn.edu to be able to find all the different resources can be really helpful as well. Also, just recognize the impact of going to school during a pandemic. You know, we started the presentation with really that preface that this is very different than, you know, what you probably thought about your first semester at UM-Dearborn was going to look like. As Charlie mentioned, when you applied, you were probably thinking of attending classes in person, not primarily remote. And all of that is stressful. And not only is that stressful, but we have our own personal stressors that we're going through because of this pandemic. We might have family members or friends who are sick. We might have different conflicts within families about how to best be able to manage our health during a pandemic. We might have additional financial stressors within ourselves and our families because of the impact of businesses having to be able to be closed to keep everyone safe. All those things are real stressors. And it's completely understandable that you may not be functioning. I won't even say may not. You will not be functioning at 100% during this fall semester because this is not a normal time. We're not equipped to or adjusted to being able to function during a global pandemic. So although it's important to manage that stress, we need to be able to give ourselves a little bit of grace too, that this is different times, and it's going to impact our performance, and to not be hard on ourselves about that.
It's okay to not be okay is what I always like to say.
That is a perfect way to be able to say it. Absolutely. It is okay not to be okay. And it's expected right now, you know, that, you know, communicate with your colleagues, communicate with your professors, communicate with your fellow students, get that support. You know, recognize that you're not the only one feeling that way. But also by communicating, you can be able to let people know that you're not okay, and they can be able to help provide you the different resources that might make it a little easier to be able to cope with the different things we're all facing. Charlie also mentioned that that he just wrote recently a wellness email on financial wellness. Again, for those that are new to the university, you may not be aware that University of Michigan-Dearborn has a wellness collaborative that focuses on 9 different domains of wellness that you can see kind of on your screen. And one of the things we do is that if you're interested in getting weekly Wellness Wednesday emails that give you kind of some tips and tricks on how to be able to obtain whatever that wellness domain is for that week, we would ask that you just go on our website, umdearborn.edu/caps. And there is a form under the helpful resources, just a quick little Google form, ask your name and your email that we ask you to fill out. That will get you added to that listserv. And we promise we do not send any emails other than once a week Wellness Wednesday emails. It is completely the only reason it is used for. Not only is it a great way to be able to get tips and tricks about whatever the domain of wellness is that we're focusing on, but it also any type of events that are related to that wellness domain, we would put in that email as well. So it's another great way to be able to get connected and continue to focus on your wellness. And I think that, those are useful wellness stress apps too. You know, I
know clients, when I was looking at these, I know Breathe to Relax has been really popular among my clients, and the mindfulness app. Those are the 2 that I have heard good things. If I don't know my mood tracker, GPS for the soul, but if they're on here, they probably work. So those that was my shameless plug, I guess, for Breathe to Relax and mindfulness app, just because I've heard good things from students. But I'm sure that all of them are really helpful, and we have a full a full list of even more resources on the CAPS webpage. So, you know, you are always, everyone is free to please check those out. We've got you covered.
Absolutely. I would add even more with not only the helpful resources, there's apps, there's also something that you now have access to as a U of M-Dearborn student, as long as you have a UMich email, that is called Silver Cloud, which is a completely online platform that can actually give you a nice little quiz, look at not only your stress, but how you're managing anxiety, or just wellness overall, and then give you like online videos and skills to be able to kind of help you be able to navigate some different specific stressors that you might be experiencing. So that is free to all UM-Dearborn students, and actually staff and faculty too, because we really want people focusing on their wellness right now. And you can find that also at umdearborn.edu/CAPS website. I think that wraps us up for today. But if you are watching this and walked away with some questions that you really felt weren't answered and would like to be able to connect with us, again, please feel free to email us. And we will get back with you as soon as possible to be able to set up that appointment and answer those questions. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
Okay.